and guardians, please help your children adhere to this rule, both on land and on the water. Smoking and vaping are not permitted on the dock at any time. In the case of an emergency on the water, your deckhand and United States Coast Guard licensed captain will provide you with instructions as needed. In the event of a fire, we have 2 portable fire extinguishers, one at the front of the dock next to the narrator, and one at the rear of the dock under the last seat on the driver's side. We also have an onboard fire suppression system that can be activated by the captain or deckhand. If we need to evacuate the duck while on the river, the quickest route is over the sides. Push firmly on the plastic windows to make them fall. The rear portion of the canopy is retractable. Unlock the latch located on the back of the canopy and slide it forward as indicated by the arrow on the roof. There are life jackets overhead on both sides and in the back of the duck. The smaller life jackets with the red tabs are for children or persons weighing 90 pounds or less. The larger life jackets with the yellow tabs are for persons weighing more than 90 pounds. In the event of a water emergency, please don your life jacket and then assist others when needed. There are 2 life rings on the duck, one above the driver's seat and one attached to the outside rear of the duck on the driver's side. We have a mobile phone as well as a VHF Marine radio aboard, which allow us to communicate directly with the United States Coast Guard, State Police Marine Unit, local fire and EMS, and our shoreside manager. Thank you for your attention, and now we invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy your tour of Boston.
There needs to be a chaperone in front. But if somebody... I don't mind.
Hello? How was the canned briefing? Riveting, right? I assume everybody was listening attentively to every word, but if not, who cares? I wind up needing to repeat most of it anyway. My name is Bjorn the Berserker, and I understand you folks are here for a tour. Well, step 1 of that is this thing would have to actually go somewhere, and I can't help you with that one. Are any of you familiar with Boston drivers? There's Berserk, and there's Berserk. A Boston driver in anywhere in the vicinity of rush hour? I do not want any of that smoke, as I assume kids still say. But we did bring our own Boston driver. This is Captain Will. He should be just about crazy enough. And his vehicle is, generally speaking, bigger than theirs. So Captain Will, whenever you're ready, why don't we do the thing? That's an industry term. So it's always nice to know you're going out with at least one responsible adult. Here it is. Captain Will be taking Liberty Teresa. His intentions were a little bit different. I grew up hearing about this place. I heard Boston's a beautiful city. I heard about its rich history. I heard about the wonderful food on offer. Naturally, I wanted to come see it for myself. Then steal everything that wasn't nailed down. Set everything else on fire. And then listen to a little Led Zeppelin while I watched this town burn. It's pretty standard Viking stuff. Raiding, pillaging, it's good work if you can get it. Better part of 300 years my people did that. The Viking Age, they called it. Except here's the thing. That was almost 1,000 years ago that ended. Trying to pick it up out of the blue, turns out not everything works the same these days. For starters, and this was a bummer, turns out they don't make Viking longships anymore. So, you know, originally I figured, fine, I'll just steal one of these things instead. This is technically a boat and a boss. We didn't have boats in the Viking Age. Figure I'd do my thing and drive off into the ocean. It's all good. Then I found out that, well, on land, this thing will pretty much move about as fast as traffic permits. But on the water, it tops off somewhere around 5 miles per hour. You'll never believe this. The state police also have boats. Much, much faster boats. But I did not give up there. I went to every captain, mechanic I knew. I asked some technical questions. what if we drilled holes in the sides of the guns for oars? Made everybody row. Could that get us any faster? They told me there's about 5 feet of steel drag underneath there. Would not get 1 more mile per hour out of it. Disappointing, but okay. If the strength of mortals can't budge one of these things, what about the gods? Rip off the roof, bolt a mast somewhere in the center, big old sail. Until finally they said, fine, I'll just give the stupid tour. It's pretty fun, for the most part. Christian Science Plaza. Largest private plot of land in the city. World headquarters of the Christian Science religion. You guys heard of Scientology before? Cool, it's not these guys. The names are vaguely similar. There's occasionally a little bit of confusion, but the Church of Christ Scientists got its start about 75 years before L. Ron Hubbard wrote Dianetics. Local name Mary Baker Eddy back in 1879. First woman who ever established an internationally recognized religion. You're going to hear variations on this. First this, oldest that. But before we get into the good stuff, let's recap. Do you remember when the soulless voice in the box was advising you to stay seated during the tour? That was fantastic advice, because I do not think we have a single driver working for this company that does not get cut off at bare minimum once in traffic per shift day. In practice, much more than that. So if this thing suddenly stops, you're gonna like that even less if you're standing when it happens. Also, kind of in that vein, if you want to keep it inside the windows. Arms, heads, legs, cameras, small children, whatever. And I hate to say it, but no smoking, no vaping, no flaming arrows, no fire of any kind on this vessel. You could do all that at home. Sound good? Going out through Boston streets back in '94, people got cute. They would quack at the ducks as they passed. Soon enough, the ducks started quacking back. Give it 31 years, it's basically a Boston tradition now. If somebody quacks at us, they're saying hello. What they're hoping is that we will all quack back. And I think we should. It's only neighborly. It's actually kind of fun when you get into it. But they're hoping for a good one. They're hoping everyone will do it. So to coordinate that, what we usually do is we work out some kind of signal. So I'm going to be back a conversation I was having with one of you before the tour. Do we have any sports fans? Does anybody, let's talk about my favorite football team, which is not from here. Does anybody know which football team plays out in Minnesota? Vikings. Does anybody know the famous rallying cry of the Minnesota Vikings? At the beginning of every home game, the crowd starts doing this. Skull. 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 When it comes up, I'll only yell it once, because we'll be under a time crunch. But that's Old Norse. It means drink. It's basically Viking for cheers. It's a dry tour, but we can still get in on the fun. If I say skull, you think you guys can give me a resounding quack quack? Let's give it a try. Skull! Quack quack! That was way, way better than the last group. I'll take it. In fact, I enjoyed that so much we can start talking about Boston a little more now. Let me give you one of a few reasons why I'm glad I did not set the city on fire. I figure if I stick it out a few more years, there should be a heck of a party here. And the Viking does love a good party. 2030, that's when Boston will be celebrating its 400th birthday. More than respectable by American standards. Boston was founded back in 1630 by a group of English Puritans. Has anybody here ever heard of the Puritans before? Okay. Have you ever heard anything good about the Puritans before? Let me guess. Belts around their hats, hunting witches, hating fun. Does that about sum it up? Well, then first of all, I regret to inform you, the belts around the hats thing is completely made up. It's a cool look, but you don't start seeing portraits like that until the 19th century. The other two are an oversimplification, but I won't say untrue exactly. Have you ever heard of the Salem Witch Trial, 1692? That was real. Same bunch of guys, just about a half hour north of here. As for the hating fun thing, does anybody here celebrate Christmas? You would not have liked Puritan Boston. They outlawed that for 22 years here. To the Puritans, Christmas was an affront to God on the grounds that it was a pagan holiday. In complete fairness to the Puritans, they weren't wrong about that one. Christmas is totally a pagan holiday. I can say that with some confidence because you stole it from us. You're welcome. You probably string lights up on your trees, maybe a little tinsel. We lit the trees on fire, but basically the same concept. They had their good points too, but we'll get into it. All that said, it's been 400 years. Things change. Today here in Boston, we have, I would argue, quite a bit of fun. For instance, as we make our way through Boston's Back Bay, we are currently on Boylston Street. On the 21st of last month, we had about 30,000 runners come through here. That was about 2 weeks worth of us not being able to get anywhere near Boylston Street. You can't just reroute all that at a moment's notice. They all crossed the finish line of the Boston Marathon, which is about a block up. I always know we're close because I am looking at the Johnson Building of the Boston Public Library up ahead off to our right. If any of you are big readers in general, but especially the kind that prefer the feeling of an actual physical book in your hands to listening to Audible, staring at your Kindle, whatever, it's a place you should check out. If you want to find a bigger library collection, you would need to head down to Washington, D.C. Check out the Library of Congress. It's the only one that's bigger. Now, so some of you know about the Puritans. What happened to them? The Puritans kind of like a dinosaur. They didn't die out so much as evolve. Today you call them either Congregationalists or Unitarians. You can find some of the Congregationalists right here. Old South Church, established back in 1875. However, Trinity Church, up and off to our right. A lot of folks consider this the star of Copley Square. This one is Episcopal, which I find vaguely hilarious. The reason that the Puritans left England in the first place, the whole reason that they moved 3,000 miles, was essentially to get away from this other group called the Anglicans, the Church of England. Basically, they weren't happy with how the Church of England was being run. They thought it was too much like the Roman Catholic Church, which they really, really, really did not like. They basically thought of the Pope as Satan's chief agent on earth. So when the Church of England split off, they got rid of the Pope, put the King in charge instead. They said you kept the veneration of the saints, the stained glass windows, all that pageantry. We don't need any of that. We have a chance to practice a purer form of faith. That's why their critics called them Puritans. So they came out here to do that, build their perfect society. All that said, Episcopalians are the local American flavor of the Anglicans. All that hassle, and 400 years later, they're still just staring right across the street at each other. Coming up off to our right momentarily, 500 Boylston. I don't know if anyone here ever saw a sitcom called Boston Legal. Most people know William Shatner as Captain James Tiberius Kirk, but as Denny Crane, he proved he could also be very, very funny on purpose. 500 Boylston is the real front to that fictitious law firm where he worked, Crane, Pewter, and Schmidt. Let's see, what else have we got around here? Quite a bit. Let's see. I know I have that. Oh, it's right here. When I say Boston is 400 years old, I am not talking about anything you can see right now. When I talk about colonial Boston, Puritan Boston, whatever, I am talking about this thing. The old Shawmut Peninsula, all 1 square mile of it. This is about a 40th, the size of what you call Boston today, but in the early days, that's all there was. Shawmut is an Algonquin Indian word, means living waters. It's what the local indigenous Massachusetts people call this area. Trust everyone was already aware of this. When the English showed up, there had been people living in this area for about 6,000 years by that point. Without getting too much into the very depressing nitty-gritty, the Puritans treated them about as fairly as European settlers ever treated the locals. Very low bar, but it's what you got. We are not on this. We're somewhere off to the western edge of the map right now. We call this the Back Bay because if you've been here 200 years ago, look in any direction you care to, you would have seen nothing but water. It was all the Charles River back then. A tidal estuary, a bay back behind Boston, if you will. This is a slightly more modern map of the city. You got the Charles River right here. We'll be there later. Unless something goes catastrophically wrong, we will never be out here on the Atlantic Ocean. We are currently right here in this big light blue section. If you are looking at light blue on this map, that means today this is part of Boston's land area, but it started out as nothing but water. Big change. Don't suppose you have any locals on this one? Anyone from around this area? Okay, well then take my word for it. I've got a trustworthy face, right? There is a town about 9 miles south of here, Needham, Massachusetts. Used to have a geographical feature called Needham Heights. It's a much flatter place today, because in 1857, an army of workers with pickaxes and shovels descended on that. They spent the next 40 years tearing that apart, shipping all the rubble up here by train, and then just dumping the rubble into the river until it wasn't a river anymore. It's the exact same way you get South Boston, or did anyone fly into Boston? Logan International Airport? East Boston today is basically just one big island off the coast of regular Boston, but more than half of that was originally just the Atlantic Ocean. Now, this is what we call landfill, backfill, whatever term you please. The Boston Public Garden is a little bit different. It's still man-made from the ground up, but it's only debatably the Back Bay, because it predates the Back Bay Fill-In project by about 20 years. This has been around since 1837. It's the oldest botanical garden in the country today. Some of you can maybe already see it. If not, don't worry, you soon will. There's a pond in there through the trees. It's been kind of neat driving past it over the past month or so, because every winter they drain this to clean it. 3-4 weeks ago, I finally saw water in there again, but only about 2 weeks ago that I finally saw the paddle boats back out there. There's a fleet of 6. Each paddle boat has a pretty white swan figurehead. Those are Boston's famous swan boats. They have been paddling around this pond ever since 1877, when the Paget family first set this up. It's still owned and operated by the same family. You don't pay the same as you would have back in 1877, but closer than you might think. Last I checked, it's in the ballpark of $5 for a lovely, scenic, relaxing 20-minute ride around this pond. I always tell people, if anyone's ever looking for a good way to impress a date here in Boston without breaking the bank, that is a very, very popular choice. In fact, on the subject of romance, has anyone ever heard this little ditty before? Da 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 da. The Wedding March was first played in 1850. It comes from the same thing that inspired this. It was an opera called Lohengrin. It was written by a fella named Richard Wagner. If you haven't heard of him before, he's basically the reason why everybody thinks my people wore these silly hats in battle. They didn't. Wings may look cool, but not exactly practical. At the height of Act 1 of Lohengrin, you've got the Lady Elsa, Duchess of Brabant, on trial for the perfidious murder of her younger brother Gottfried. The charge is that she has bumped off her younger brother to usurp his position, and that's how she became the Duchess of Brabant. Twice she prays to God for a champion to defend her. Twice she thinks her prayers have been ignored. Until, just in the nick of time, here comes Lohengrin, Knight of the Holy Grail. He's here to defend the honor of his beleaguered, soon-to-be lady love in trial by righteous combat. He has arrived by boat, and the boat is pulled by a giant magical swan. Now, let me assure you, Lady Elsa is entirely innocent of these scurrilous charges. Gottfried isn't even dead. He's the poor sucker pulling the boat. He has been cursed in the form of a swan by the evil witch Ortrud as part of an elaborate plot to convert the region back to the worship of my old pagan gods. Sympathetic as I am, it doesn't work, And naturally, I apologize if 175 years is still too soon for spoilers. Now, if you look dead ahead, you will see another patch of greenery. This one about 200 years older, because we are now finally approaching the original city, specifically Boston Common, the oldest public park in the United States. 1634, the Puritans set all this aside as common land for the common good. This was kind of a radical idea they had out here. Nobody would own this land. Everybody could graze their cattle out here. You also had public speeches, public sermons, the occasional public hanging. Center of the action, basically. But, has anybody ever heard of Paul Revere's Ride? Between 1768 and 1776, we had British soldiers deployed in Boston, and at one point, something like half of them camped out right here. On the evening of April 18, 1775, the man in overall command, General Thomas Gage, sent 700 of these guys out on a secret mission to the town of Concord, about 20 miles west of here. They were going to head out around midnight, march on Concord, seize and destroy a store of